Hi, I'm Kaylee Thomas. I'm a digital coach at South High School in Denver Public Schools. I am here to give you some updated information on Google Meets as we've had new information about nicknames come to light that provide a safer and more secure environment for our students when using Google Meets. So, just as a refresher, Google Meets is a video conferencing platform and it provides space for either large or small meeting spaces. So, it can be as small as, I'm here recording by myself, I'm the only one in this meeting room. Or it can be as large as up to 250 participants in a regular meeting room, or up to 100,000 if live streamed. So Google Meets allows for screen sharing, video recording, both things that I'm doing right now, as well as the ability to mute and remove participants, to share files, and to chat with participants. So the reason for this updated webinar, this analogy is thanks to Erin Kimmel. She's another one of our digital coaches at DPS. Um, But the general Google Meet link that provides a 10-digit randomized code, which is what we were getting from Google Calendar or just going to meet.google.com and not nicknaming your session, is essentially like a classroom, an unlocked classroom. So as a teacher, if you leave your classroom unlocked, 9 times out of 10, totally fine, nothing happens. But in that 10th time, that off chance that students can get in your room when you're not in there, and they could be doing who knows what. And it's an unsupervised situation, so it's just not as safe for students. So, what we are now recommending is a nicknamed session, which you can think of more as a traveling teacher. So, when your class is done, you are having everyone leave the room, you're locking the door, you're taking all your stuff with you. Students cannot get back into that locked classroom. So, essentially, with a nickname session, it makes it so that students cannot get into the session before or after the session meeting. When you are nicknaming your session, make sure that it is unique. If it's just like math, then it's possible that someone else in the district could be using that nickname at the same time, and then you would be entering into the same room. So we also recommend using a nickname convention across your school. This would make it easier for students if they are always going to, for instance, last name subject. So that way they would know if they're going to this class, I'm going to be typing in Thomas Math. If I'm going into this class, I'm going to be typing in Kimmel Language Arts. It doesn't have to be that convention, it can be anything, but you do want to make sure that your nickname is unique enough to not step on someone else's toes and to make it make sense for your students. So this is a GIF that shows how to join a Google Meet. And so I'm going to let it play through once before I speak over it. Okay, so it's going to keep playing, but the first thing that you would do is go to Google Meet, either by going in the waffle or by going to meet.google.com. Then you can click Join or Start a Meeting, enter your unique nickname, and click Continue. As soon as you click Continue, that room is live. Students can now join, even though you're not technically in the room until you click Join Now. So that's just something to keep in mind. There is that little blip of space where you want to make sure that you are clicking Join Now as soon as you start the meeting. Another way that you can start a nickname session is with a short link of g.co/meet/ and then the stars would be replaced by whatever your nickname is. This is probably the easiest one to use if you have elementary students. Um, from a teacher standpoint, you just go to g.co/meet/Kimmel Online, for instance, is our example here. You just type that in your address bar and it will start the meeting right away. You can then share that link via email, via Google Classroom, via Schoology, however you communicate with your students. Then your students just need to click on that link and they will join your meeting when you are there. If they click on it before you are there, they will get an error that says that with their credentials, they cannot start a meeting room. The third way that you can start a nickname session is in Google Classroom. So if you're not using Google Classroom, we don't recommend using this way. But if you are using Google Classroom, you can go into your settings and then turn on your meeting. It will give you a randomized link, and even though it is random code here, it is actually a nickname session to where they cannot get in without you. You can also turn on the slider to make it visible to students if you want to, but again, it is a nickname session, so it does limit, so students cannot get in before or after you. Also, keep in mind that no matter how you set it up, if you go to meet.google.com, if you use a g.co/meet link, or if you go within Google Classroom, your students need to be logged into their DPS accounts. A nickname session will limit your session to DPS domain. Okay, now that we are in a Google meeting, this is a refresher of what some of the buttons do. So up here in the top right, you have a people button, and if you click on that button, again, it's the silhouette of two people. If you click on it, you will see a list of all participants that are in the room. If you click on the drop-down arrow or on a student's name, it will give you three options. You can either pin a screen, and that will make it so that that screen is what is on top. That is what you see, only that screen until you unpin it. This will override the default, which is to either show the person that is speaking or the presentation. Um, you can also mute your students. Keep in mind, only students can unmute themselves. You cannot force unmute a student. And then your third option over here is that you can remove students. So this is super important at the end of a call. Generally, students will hang up and close their screen. They leave the session. If you have a few that forget, please make sure that you click on this round circle so that you can remove all students from the room so that you can be the last to leave before you hang up the call. Essentially, you're making sure that all of your students leave your classroom before you lock the door. So make sure that you remember, again, you get there by clicking the drop down button and then the circle with a line through it. One question that has come up is whether or not there's a way to mute all students at once. No, there is not, but generally speaking, when you have a class join, only the first 5 students that join the room are unmuted by default. The 6th student and everyone thereafter is muted upon entry into the classroom. The other button in the top right is your chat. So if you click on the chat, you will be able to see everything that people are typing. There is no private messaging in this platform. So everything that is said, everyone can see. This is also a good place to drop the link for anything that you want your students to click on. So maybe it's the presentation slides, maybe it is a Google Doc you want to collaborate on, but just be aware that you can drop links and then students can click on it and it will open in a new tab for them. Also, keep in mind that whether or not you have the chat open, your students are able to chat. So we do recommend having that chat open so that you are able to supervise what is going on in the chat. Now we're going to take a look at the buttons that you have on the bottom of your screen in a Google Meet session. If you don't see the buttons, you can wiggle your mouse, try clicking on your screen. Oh, I don't want to click, sorry, not ready to go on yet. But that will pull up the buttons across the bottom. Also, just a little pro tip here, if you use Control D or Command D on a Mac, that is a way that you can mute and unmute yourself quickly. These buttons down here in the bottom are worth teaching your students about. So you can also take this slide and put it into your presentation so that you can show your students what options they have as well. Um, Here's where they can mute and unmute themselves, and here's where you can turn your camera on and off. If your session is lagging or glitching in any way, then you can click this button and it will turn off your video, and that can help, as well as asking your participants to turn off their video can save bandwidth and make it go more smoothly. There are two places where you can turn on closed captions down here on the bottom of your screen, as well as clicking in the More Options menu. It's the same thing up there. But turning on the captions only does it for yourself, so be sure to let your students know that they can turn on closed captions if that's a support that helps them. Finally, you have a Present Now button. Your students can present their screen, so just be aware of that. Um, if they wanted to present a presentation to you, this would be a way that they could do that. Then you have this button over here with three buttons that gives you more options. So this is how you can record your meeting. It's the top option there. Keep in mind, a lot of people have asked us if they should be recording sessions. That would be a question for your school administration. They can give you better guidance as to whether or not you should be recording. If it is recorded, the recording will only go into the Drive file of the host. So students don't have the ability to start or stop recording, but if another teacher joined your session, they could start recording. Um, Regardless of who starts the recording, it will be saved in the host's Google Drive. It will take a little while to buffer after the session is done, but it will create a folder called Meet Recordings in your Google Drive, and that is where all of your recordings will be stored. It should also email you once the recording is buffered and done and in your Google Drive. Also, in this More Options menu, you have the ability to change your layout. So you can click on Spotlight, that will show you like one student screen. Sidebar gives you one big screen, so you could students could view the presentation here as well as view 4 or 5 classmates on the right-hand side. Tiled allows you to see 3 or 4 various people at the same time. Many people have asked if there's a way to see all people at once, and there is, but you need to download something called Google Meet Grid View. So you go to the Chrome Web Store, and then you can search for Google Meet Grid View, and it looks like 4 tiny squares, and then that allows you to see all of your participants at once. I'm going to go back a few slides so that you can see within a Google Meet screen, this button comes up only when you have the Google Meet Grid View extension. Teachers can get this, but it is not cleared. Students cannot download their own extensions, so they can't get that extension. All right, and then this is looking at the recording option again. When you do click on record, keep in mind that it will ask you to ask for permission from your participants, and that is something that you should do, is ask for permission. This is a reminder that your recording will be stored in the drive of whoever hosted the meeting. So this screenshot is from a meeting that Erin Kimmel hosted, and therefore the recording would be stored in her Google Drive. Also, when you're recording, you will have a record icon in the top left of your screen. This is a little trick called a two-tab trick. Essentially, what you can do is when you have a slideshow that you want to share with your class, it can be hard to see your slideshow as well as manage your Google Meet. So One way that you can help with this is you can take your entire Google Meet, or excuse me, your Google Slides URL, and then you replace just the end from the word edit on with the word present. And what that does is it makes it so that your slide deck is still presenting, but it keeps your tabs open at the top. And that's what I have going on here at the top. So it just makes it easier to toggle between my slideshow and my Google Meet, which is where I would be able to see any chat that's going on. So it is something to keep in mind that when you are presenting, your chat still could be going on between students. And so this is a way to make it easier to toggle between the two screens. Again, the way that I did that is I took the full URL of my slide deck. I changed the URL from the word edit and beyond and put in the word present. I am sharing my screen right now, but this allows me to go back and forth between my presentation and my Google Meet. All right, live streaming is a little bit more advanced feature, so we really only recommend live streaming if you have a situation where you're going to have more than 250 people, um, or you really want to have a live session without having any chat or interactability. However, if you want to have a session with no chat and interactability, then you might want to consider pre-recording either in Google Meet or something like Screencastify, as that would allow you to chunk your material into smaller sections, um, and then give that recording to your students in more bite-sized, manageable pieces rather than having super long, non-interactive, just live streaming for long periods of time. However, there are some situations where live streaming is helpful, particularly when you have a group larger than 250. Keep in mind that in this scenario, participants have no access um, to share their video, to share their audio, or to access a chat. So they are essentially watching like a Facebook live stream or an Instagram live stream where people can watch, but they cannot interact with the presenter. Also, the presenter has no ability to see if or who is in the class. If anyone, excuse me, or who is in the class. So it's kind of like recording by yourself anyway, because you cannot interact with your students and even see who is present. You can record a live stream and you can share it. So the way that you set up a live stream is that it has to be done from your Google Calendar. So you can get to Google Calendar by going to calendar.google.com. Then you click on the day and the time that you want to add an event. Once you have added the event, you have an option to add a live stream. And so that's what you would click on. And when you do that, you get a screen that looks like this. So if you are live streaming, you need to make sure that you share the live stream URL with your students. That is the only code that you will share with your students if you are live streaming. If they click on that early, they will get a message that the live stream has not started yet. If they click on it after the session, they will get a message that the stream has ended. As a teacher, you still need to use the regular meeting code. So you will go into this meeting code right here, as well as anyone else who might be co-presenting with you. Then, when you are in that meeting room, you will need to start streaming. To do that, you can click on the three dots on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And now, because you set it up in Google Calendar and you turned on live streaming, you have an option to start streaming. It's absolutely critical that you push start streaming. Otherwise, your students are still going to have that error code of waiting for the stream to begin. So make sure that you press start streaming. We hope that this information was helpful. And again, the purpose of this was to provide some updated information on Google Meet. Please feel free to reach out to myself or Erin Kimmel or your regional or digital coach for any additional questions that you might have. Thank you.